One of the things tourists to France sometimes complain about while they're here is the French themselves. Many people feel the cliché of the grumpy French person isn't a cliché at all, but the truth. Well, my guest today on Entre Nous is trying to debunk that myth. Her name is Janet Hulstrand, and she's the author of Demystifying the French, How to Love Them and Make Them Love You. Janet, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me, what made you want to demystify the French?
Well, exactly what you were talking about, actually, is that there are so many Americans, especially, who think, I used to run a study abroad program in Paris, and my students, before I would take them over here, I would ask them sometimes in their orientation what they had heard about France, and a lot of them would say, well, we've heard that they're rude, arrogant, and that they hate Americans. And I thought, well, there's a little work to do there. So, through the years, I tried to teach them. The thing is that I think what happens to Americans when they come here, if they're not prepared in some way, is that there are some fundamental rules of French etiquette that they just don't know. And if you don't know them, you can't do them. And so they sort of start breaking these rules from the get-go. And then they have, they're kind of not received very well. And it just is this sort of spiral. That doesn't have to be.
All right, so let's talk about some of those rules. So what do you think are some of the biggest fundamental faux pas?
Well, the biggest and most fundamental one is the importance of saying bonjour, preferably bonjour monsieur or bonjour madame.
Always going into an elevator.
Anything, because those are considered social interactions in France. And I think, so before any social interaction, you need to greet the person. But that's by saying bonjour. And I think that also if you would tell Americans you have to start any social encounter with the word bonjour, they wouldn't think of walking into an elevator or asking directions on the street, but by French rules, they are. Anytime you're going to speak to another person, you need to greet them properly.
Indeed. All right, that's a big one. I completely agree with you. What's another big one, would you say?
Well, another big one is the other thing that people do is that they will walk into a cafe or something and walk up to the counter and without even asking the person if they speak English, will just, first of all, they're not saying bonjour. And then they're also not saying, do you speak English before they start speaking English. So I think, that's presumptuous and probably a little off-putting to the French. They have every reason to at least be asked.
I agree. That's the key thing. When my mom came the first time, I remember teaching her, parlez-vous anglais? That's a very important one.
That's a good place to start.
Another interesting one that you mentioned in your book that maybe particularly Americans don't think about so much is that we're very loud.
Yes. That's one of my 5 rules, or tips. That's one of my 5 essential tips. That we really need to think about lowering our voices because we talk too loud. And I think people do that especially if they're more than one person together traveling. Mm-hmm. They're very excited. It's also beautiful. It's also, interesting. Mm-hmm. And they're telling everybody about it.
Right. So lots of good tips in the book. I also like at the very end, you have a glossary where you talk about some different language things. And one of my pet peeves is the difference between 2 cities in France. So you have Caen, which is in Normandy, and Cannes, which is in the south of France where the film festival is. And people often get that wrong. Is there another language thing that you feel people often don't quite get right when they come here?
Well, that's a good one. And it took me a long time to figure out the difference. The way I finally learned how to say Cannes properly was I was taking a train from Paris to Nice. Mm. And as we came into the train station in Cannes, they said it several times, and I thought, okay, that's it.
All right, now I got it.
I don't know. I think, well, one trap, sort of linguistic trap, is the difference between c'est dommage and tant pis.
Okay. So c'est dommage is
they
like that's
both translate as too bad.
Yeah.
But one of them implies sympathy. C'est dommage implies sympathy, and tant pis does not. So
interesting. All right. Well, there are lots of great tips in this book, but you've also written other books. You've written another memoir that's called "A Long Way from Iowa to the Heartland, from the Heartland to the Heart of France." How did you come to be living in Champagne, in the Champagne region of France?
Well, it's a very long story, and
you've got 1 minute.
part of that story is told in that book that you just mentioned, "In a Long Way from Iowa." But the short version is that within the first week of that I was in Paris for the first time in my life. I got the opportunity to go pick grapes in the vendange in this little village in Champagne, made friends with the vigneron, and kept up that relationship through the years, and eventually bought a house there.
Wonderful. Well, Janet, thank you so much for trying to break this all down for so many of our viewers who absolutely love France and want to know more about France. Your book is called Demystifying the French, How to Love Them and Make Them Love You. You're working on a new memoir right now, so all the best on that as well. And thank you so much for coming to talk to us on
Thank you
France
very
24.
much for having me.
You are watching France 24. Stay with us.